Hey everybody, it's Eric from Mad A Productions. And today we're going to be taking a look at a Nintendo NES game, specifically an unlicensed Nintendo NES game. Now, I know unlicensed NES games are usually pretty bad, they get a bad rap, but this one's from Tengen, and it's Vindicators. And I mean, this one's gotta be good. Look, it's got badass laser tanks on it. Let's take a look. Okay, so here's a up-close look at the box for Vindicators, and we can see the badass laser tank on the front there, and I love that there's a laser shooting up here, blowing up part of the border. And like I said, we can see here it's a Tengen game. And this always cracked me up on these games. If you've not seen the box for one of these games before, this little thing down here. So it tells you it's for play for the Nintendo Entertainment System, but Nintendo of America had nothing to do with this. And I'm sure if you're collecting for the NES, you're familiar with the story. Basically, long story short, Tengen didn't want to pay Nintendo's bullshit licensing fees and cartridge fees and everything, so they figured out a way to get around the lockout chip and made their own games, and that's why their games look slightly different. So let's take a look at the back here, and it's got kind of a quick synopsis of the storyline. Long story short, it's the future, aliens are attacking, and for some reason sending tanks into their battle stations is the way to go. So that's what you're doing. Now, like I said earlier, Tengen is basically Atari's home console division at the time. There was a Vindicators arcade game released by Atari, and that was a very cool arcade game. It was one of those really cool arcade cabinets that Atari did that had like specialized controls. It had the like tank controls, which is pretty cool. Unfortunately, that doesn't translate as well over to the NES, but still a good game, the NES version. So here's a close look at the cartridge, and like I mentioned earlier, they didn't want to pay Nintendo's bullshit cartridge fees, so Tengen's cartridges are these black ones. You'll see a lot of these. So in this, the label on this looks amazing because it's been kept in this box, so it looks fantastic. And this is a complete copy, so here's another cool thing that these came with. They came with different sleeves. Instead of those like cool plastic black Nintendo sleeves, you had these really big cardboard sleeves to keep them in. It was almost like another box. And there's a styrofoam insert in there. So if you take that styrofoam insert out, then this cartridge will actually go all the way in there without sticking out. It'll stick flush. But I leave it in there like that because I keep this in the box. So there's that. And then also, it comes with the instruction manual. And it's a pretty thin instruction manual, but there's not really a lot of instructions necessary. Although you are going to want this, or at least like look up a copy online, because like you'll see in the gameplay footage, certain weapons only work on certain enemies and bosses, and this kind of gives you some hints, the manual. So this is nice to have, although it is kind of thin. And then also it has these this cool registration card, the Vindicators registration card. And I love having stuff like this too. This is always fun to look at. Please rate the following aspects of the game. Realism. Oh, we're sending laser tanks into alien battle stations. So I'm going to say it's a 9 on the realism. I love these. And then another cool thing about this is a lot of times the Tengen games came with posters, and I love when games come with posters. So let's see if we can see what this looks like. And usually they advertise other games. That's why they make the posters. What is this a poster for? I forget. Look at that. That is oh, it's Rolling Thunder. That's cool. So we got Rolling Thunder, we got Super Sprint, Indiana Jones. That's cool that they had Indiana Jones. Gauntlet. This is a cool game on lots of cool NES games. So even though Tengen games were unlicensed games, they were still awesome. I think I'm gonna hang this poster up. This is a cool poster and definitely needs to be up in my game room. Let's take a look at some gameplay footage.
Now that's cool. I like the tank dragging in the title screen. Now you'll notice the 1988 copyright date from Tengen there. I believe the Atari arcade version of this has the same year on it. I think these were released pretty close to each other, so that's kind of interesting. Now here you get the option to start a little bit later in the game if you want, but I would recommend starting at the beginning, especially if you're a beginner, because this game does have kind of a high learning curve. Now the first level is pretty simple. There's just a couple of mines to avoid, a couple of tanks to destroy, and a couple of power-ups to pick up to show you how everything works. You'll see that fuel gauge down there in the bottom. If that runs out, your tank dies, and it's kind of like it is in Gauntlet, where it's constantly depleting. And the goal is to open up the doors at the end of the level and to exit. And you can see there's 2 doors there. That's because this game is 2 player simultaneous if you have another person that you can get to play old games with you. And I remember playing this two-player a lot as a kid. Me and my buddy used to rent this game, and we played it a lot two-player. It is a lot of fun two-player. The mechanics are kind of similar to combat, but now you're going through a maze instead of just trying to blow up tanks. So it's like a more complicated version of combat, I guess you can say, with a maze thrown in. It's pretty cool. Now, unfortunately, it doesn't control as well as the arcade game does because it doesn't have those specialized controls that the arcade game did, but it still controls pretty good. Sometimes controlling, things like tanks with an NES controller can be awkward, but it's pretty decent in this game. Now, in addition to the regular shot on your tank, you also have bombs and smart shots. The regular shot is fired with the B button, and then you can use the select button to either pick your smart shot or your bombs, and then use the A button to fire those. Smart shots are like heat-seeking, and bombs are just, think of them as big, more explosive versions of your bullets. Now, I'm sure you noticed one of the power-ups I was collecting was stars. Well, those stars are actually currency, and once you've got enough, you can use them at the end of each level to buy power-ups, like more bombs, more smart shots. You can power up your gun. Buying shields, which I recommend, because if you have shields, that greatly decreases the amount of fuel you lose when you get hit. And like I mentioned earlier, the most important thing is fuel. When you run out of fuel, it gives you a countdown timer of 10 seconds, and also your tank slows to a crawl. And if you don't get some fuel before that timer runs out, you die. You do get 3 tanks and a couple of continues. I will say this game is a lot easier played 2-player co-op. Playing it by yourself, it definitely does put up a good challenge. Not an unfair challenge, but a good challenge. I do find that, when I die, if I play the same spot a couple of times, I'll figure out what needs to be done to get through it and get through the level. So, you do get a little bit further each time you play it, which is good. You can see here I was starting to run out of fuel, so the tank was slowing down. I need to get out of this level quick. You definitely have to try and grab as many power-ups as possible. So you'll see me being a little bit greedy, even though it looks like I'm running out of fuel. But remember, I do get a fuel bonus at the end of the level, and I can buy more fuel. So it's important to take a little bit of risk in this game, which makes it fun. Also, powering up your tank is essential too, so you want to grab as many stars as possible. Now, the music in this game is okay. It's good or bad depending on which level you're playing. Some levels have some really great music that I enjoy, and then other levels the music is just kind of grating and annoying. So I would give the music kind of a C+, I guess. Not the best NES music, but I've heard a lot worse also. But outside of the music, this really is a great fun game to play with a lot of challenge, a great risk versus reward system, and just a lot of old school arcade fun. And really surprisingly a great game, even though it's an unlicensed game, and a lot of times those get a bad rap. Another cool thing about this game is it's relatively inexpensive. Cart-only copies go for around $5, and you can get a complete in-box copy for around $20. So if you're looking to dip your toes in the Tengen pool, I think Vindicators is a good game to start with. Thanks for checking out my review of Vindicators. I think I'm going to go see if I can find somebody to play this game with me, because 2 players within this game is just a blast. Thanks for watching. Hey, thanks for checking out my review of an NES game with badass laser tanks. If you like what you saw, don't forget to hit those like and subscribe buttons and follow us to the social media links below. And if you got a few minutes, why don't you check out one of these other videos. And as always, thanks for watching.